Tere! Tere pärastlõunat siit Tallinnast Rakett 69 teadusstuudios.
We are at Rakett 69 Science Studios at Ülemiste City. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depends which corner of the world you are right now as you're watching us. So the topic of today's virtual forum is multilingualism. My name is Sirle Sööt, and I'm the moderator for this forum today. I'm a Swedish Estonian. I'm a mother of 3 multilingual children and a bonus mother of a couple of other children. And I'm a founder of Stockholm Estonian School. So spring is finally here. And if you tuned in quite early, you were able to enjoy this beautiful voices of spring and see how the white-tailed eagles live in their nest at Matsalu National Park. Because we had information that there is a small baby in the nest, and we were able to follow this baby as well. So this virtual forum can be followed by following the website of Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Facebook, YouTube, Estonian Public Broadcasting Company, Postimees, and Estonian World. And if you would like to send questions and comments to the speakers today, or you would like to participate in the lottery of a plane ticket for Estonia, then please log in to the official platform of this virtual forum, which is on worksup.com. And you will see this site as a banner at the bottom of the screen. And there is also the ID of the event today. So you have to enter this ID, which is Estonians Forum 0405-2023. And if you can't find the link for participation, then you can find it on the Facebook page of the Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the Global Estonian website. So if you would like to see the introduction for the speakers, you can find it on the platform. For each block, if you go to the link details, you will find this information. Questions and comments can be also included there when you press Q&A. This forum is going to be interpreted into English and Russian, as there is simultaneous interpretation available, so you can choose the language on the platform website. And now a little bit more about the lottery. So among the viewers, we have a lottery, and you can win a plane ticket to Estonia. So one of the viewers has a possibility to win a ticket for 2 people as a return ticket to Estonia. And in addition, you get 2 nights in a hotel. So in order to participate, click on the right bottom corner of the screen, and it says tasks there, and then you can answer some of the questions, and you can also enter your data. So don't forget to include your email address and your name, because otherwise we can't find you. So that if you would like to watch it a little bit later, you can still participate in the lottery, and so the lottery takes place on May 16th and at noon Estonian time. So get comfortable. Now you can watch the virtual forum, which will take 2 hours. So the first half of it will talk about the identity of Estonian language, and how to maintain your identity and the language in a multilingual family. And the second half, we will hear more information about how to maintain your Estonian language when you're abroad. Music is provided by Valter Soosalu. We will see videos from Stockholm and New York, and we will also take a look at Välgi Forest in Tartu County. But let us start. And now we have a welcome of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Margus Tsahkna.
Tere, head sõbrad!
Dear friends, I apologize that I cannot be with you today because right now we have a government in session and we have to make some really important decisions which impact all of us in Estonia, and it also impacts our taxation, so I have to be there. But I'm really happy that Estonians are bigger than it looks like on the map, if you look at the 1.3 million living in Estonia. In 1999 and year 2000, when I studied at University of Toronto myself, I had my own personal experience of international Estonians because I really felt at home there. And I'm sure that my friends back there with whom I was talking about all things Estonian are participating in the forum today. So it is so important that it doesn't matter where we go, there are always some Estonians there. And this kind of support is really useful for the young people who go and study somewhere, or if they want to go and live somewhere else. And it's also really good for these communities who have been abroad already for quite many years, because we all try to achieve the same things for Estonia. So we are small in number, but we want to punch above our weight, and this is very important, especially right now as we witness Russia's aggression in Ukraine, because everybody understands that the world is not the same as it was on the 24th of February before the war began. So therefore, it is very important the role we all play as Estonians. As a Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have also described my own objectives. One thing is that we want to tell the Estonian story. So this is the same story as we are witnessing what is happening with Ukrainians today. But we came through that story as stronger, and we are now independent. That means we have to share our experience everywhere. We know that it is possible that everything repeats again. If Ukraine does not win, if we're not helping Ukrainians, then a few years later the same conflict might take place here in Estonia. Even if Article 5 of NATO works perfectly well, conflict will take place in our territory, and therefore this question is of existential nature for us. One important thing for us is the Estonian language. So this is not only language as a means of communication, but language as the oldest particular characteristics of a nation. It's a logical way of thinking, how you convey your way of thinking. Because nobody else follows the same logic of thinking as the Estonians amongst themselves. We have the secret language. There's only 1 million people in the world who speak it, and the secret language has to be maintained so our way of thinking would survive. So therefore, I would like to recognize everybody who speak Estonian, or the teachers who teach Estonian, and all these people who are learning Estonian, even if they are not Estonians or have not been born in Estonia. So we become greater than we are. We have a lot of good friends. We have members of our families who could learn more Estonian, who can be more connected with us. Because we have to say that Estonia is a very good place to live. Clean air, forest and the sea, and great people. So even if we are outside Estonia, you're always welcome back home. And if we cannot communicate with each other on a daily basis, then the Minister of Foreign Affairs is ready to be connected with all of you through digital means. And we want to also give feedback, what people think of us, how we can do things better, and how we can better explain ourselves. So I would hope that you have a great discussion. Let us make sure that our secret language and our way of thinking will survive. And always you're welcome back home, and please receive us in your homes as well. All the best.
Suur tänu
Thank you to
välisministrile
the Minister
soojade
for Foreign Affairs for
tervitussõnade
his kind words.
Aga nüüd teeme
But now,
algust esimese
let us begin with our first
eesti keele
topic
ja
for discussion,
identiteedi hoidmine
the maintaining of the
peres.
Estonian language and identity in a multilingual family. By way of introduction, we will have a message from the family Juks from Sweden, Stockholm. The father Reimo is from Estonia, the mother Violeta from Romania. The children, Maria and Anna, have been born in Sweden.
Hello!
Buona!
Tere!
Meie oleme perekond Juks.
We are the family Juks, and in our family we use 4 languages daily. Our father speaks to us in Estonian because this is his mother tongue. mother talks to us only in Romanian because this is her mother tongue. Then at school we use Swedish and we study Estonian 3 times a week because we attend the Estonian school. It's good that we have 4 languages because it can be helpful in many situations. We can always use a secret language in different situations, and I'm glad that we speak 4 languages because if we have to learn new languages, for example French, it's going to be easier for me because I know so many languages already. We speak different languages with different people, depending on who we talk to. With our mother, we speak Romanian. With our father, Estonian. If we're among ourselves, we speak English. For us, it was important that my children would speak Romanian. My parents only speak Romanian. It's important for them to be able to communicate. When our children were small, I read fairy tales only in Romanian to them. And my children and I only watched films in Romanian. I have never worried about their Swedish skills because this will be taught by the kindergarten and the school. The children learned Romanian in their Sunday school once a week. Unfortunately, this is not possible any longer. For me, it has always been important that my children speak Estonian. And that's why, since they were born, I've only spoken Estonian to them. For the first 3 years, I read them fairy tales in Estonian every evening, and when they were little, we often watched films in Estonian. We also went to the toddler group on Sundays, and the children have performed at different concerts. They have sung or delivered poems in Estonian. We have kept in touch with our family members in Estonia and other Estonian families who live here in Sweden. There's no need to worry about children not coping with different languages. I think it's more difficult for the parents at first, but it's all worth the while. And there's no need to think that one parent not understanding the language is a problem, because over time they will learn the language if they hear it on a daily basis, and this is what our experience has demonstrated. One more tip. If possible, you should always speak one language with your child. And this means that if we're having dinner, the children speak with their mother in Romanian, and if they address me and speak to me, they do it in Estonian. This is possible, no problem. Good luck with raising your children.
Mul on hea meel tervitada meie vestluskaaslasi
Martin
Ehala,
our panelists, Martin Ehala,
Andra Kütt
Kütt,
ja Andero
and
Adamson.
Andero Adamson.
Olge palun nii kenad ja
Please be so kind
tutvustage
and
lühidalt,
briefly
kuidas te
introduce
mitmekeelsuse teemaga olete olnud
your
seotud.
experience with multilingualism.
Martinist ja
Let us
siis
begin with
Andra.
Martin and then Andra and Andero.
Ma esimest korda mitmekeelsusega
For
puutusin
the first
kokku
time, I came
doktoriõpingute
across
ajal, kui ma
multilingualism
olin kogu
when I
perega
was
Inglismaal.
doing my
Ja nägin,
PhD
kuidas
studies
oma lapsed,
in
kes olid
England
siis
with all my
eelkooliaalised ja
family,
kooliaalised,
and I
sisuliselt
saw how
aasta
my
jooksul,
children who were
kauem,
preschoolers of school age
praktiliselt omandasid
during
inglise keele.
1 year
Hiljem
almost
olen ma otselinguistina
learned the
uurinud
language.
keele
And then as a
edasikandumist
linguist, I have
põlvkondlikult,
studied
keelevahetuse
how languages
probleeme ja hiljem ka keele
given
identiteedi
from
seosed.
generation to
Nii et
generation,
mul on
and
teaduslik
also the links
kokkupuude ja
between
mul on ka
the
isiklik
language and
kokkupuude.
identity. So I have experience as a researcher and as a parent. I have researcher's experience because I study the acquisition of a first language. I have studied the speech of children who study Estonian as a first language, but in recent years I have had research projects and studies about multilingualism, and at the center of my research is the impact of the environment. What are the factors that have an impact on acquiring a language? Children begin, if they're developing normally in terms of the language skills, with different patterns, but differences emerge quite soon. So I have studied the social linguistic side of language learning, and also it has been the focus of my PhD thesis. My first experience with multilingualism was through my work in the Ministry for Education and Research, where I was dealing with Estonian language studies of Estonian children abroad. So this whole topic of Estonians abroad, Estonian communities, from the perspective of how the Estonian state can contribute to Estonian foreign communities, offering sufficient language learning opportunities to support the child's acquisition of their mother tongue, so they would acquire the language skill. And at the same time, when the child or the family would like to return to Estonia, it would be made as easy as possible to join the education system or be an active member of the society. Today, I also see these matters when looking at my small children who speak Estonian as their first language, but are acquiring other languages. This is a very exciting process. Thank you. In this introductory video that we saw, there was a 10-year-old Anna and 13-year-old Maria, and they said that they speak 4 languages on a daily basis. Because we have a virtual forum for Estonians abroad, then I'm asking you, when thinking about this video, what do you think? How do these girls identify themselves when they speak at least 2 languages daily at home? I would like to ask about the identity. How and whether the identity and language skills are linked. And I know if you noticed, they said that they speak English between themselves, not Estonian or Romanian. Should we be worried if children speak English among themselves whilst speaking Estonian to their father? Who would like to comment? If we talk about mother tongue, this is a construct of linguistics. A mother tongue is not necessarily the first acquired language. A person may have several mother tongues and they have a multiple identity. What does it depend on? From their background, from their environment, what language they prefer for a reason or another. It's not necessarily linked to their language skills, and in terms of multilingualism, you cannot master all languages equally, and you don't. It's rather about what they feel, which language do they identify as being their mother tongue, and what their identity is. So they might have multiple identities as the same way as we talk about multilingualism and talking about English speaking between themselves. I was thinking that often it's said that English is the root cause of all evil, intruding, invading the languages. But English is not bad, but Estonian is cool. I would like to advance this train of thought, but we need to work on this to promote Estonian.
Martin.
Ja, kui identiteeti
talking about identity and the links between the language and identity, it's a two-way street. First, it's the perception of the person himself or herself, but the other is how the others perceive them. And the language is a central part of ethnic identity, not for all ethnic groups, of course, but typically it is. And if we look at these girls who are speaking in Estonian, for me, as a native Estonian speaking, I identify them as Estonians. Their language use is so smooth, fluent, I identify them as Estonians. If they spoke in Romanian, then probably their fellow Romanians would identify them as Romanians, and if they study in Swedish in school, the people who wouldn't know would probably identify them as Swedes. If they speak English between themselves, then I don't know about this, because language use is very context-specific, and depending on the context and the purpose and the language proficiency, English people might think that they were from the UK, Australia, US, or Sweden. It's difficult for me to understand. There are multiple options. So multiple identity is possible, multiple mother tongues is possible. The multiple identity depends on themselves. With what language do they have emotional connection, and if they link themselves to different communities, if they are not able to say if they prefer being Romanian to being Estonian or Swedish, then this is what describes their identity. All these three nations might identify these girls as being one of their community. Let us talk about the next question about the Juks family. There was a good rule that is always observed from birth, one parent, one language. And they said that they read fairy tales, watch films in that language. And if you noticed, in that family, the language immersion had become an engine or driver for multilingualism. Reimo and Violeta had learned each other's languages, and I asked if they had attended some courses, and this was not the case. They understand each other, though. And what's interesting with this example is that both languages are small languages. Often if the one parent is English or German speaking, then it's another matter, but these are small languages, and these are not minority languages of the country, so this is something that people might identify with. So, what do you think? How many such Estonian families might be in the world who have achieved this level of multilingualism? Do you have statistics about this? And you might want to comment on what might become an obstacle in terms of achieving multilingualism. Who would like to begin? First, I would like to say that I think it was a great example of the possibility of multilingualism. They use 4 languages daily. From father, they have Estonian, Romanian from their mother, Swedish from the education system and the society. And in Sweden, English skills are very good, so they have given the young people a communication language that they might use daily. I do not know about statistics about the number of families, but I hope there are many such families. This language model is fully functional, and looking at the video, the father said that the parents because of lack of knowledge, deprive their children of these opportunities. We shouldn't underestimate the children's abilities. They are fully able to learn the languages, as you said, one language, one parent. But the awareness raising among parents, the earlier we start with this, the better the results will be, because children acquire languages best up to the age of 10. We as adults know how difficult it is to learn a foreign language. And even if we have reached a certain level, to keep this level, it's also difficult. So awareness raising, I think, is very, very important. And I would like to know how the family have come to these conclusions. Was this a conscious decision, or they have gotten support from the school or from their previous life? Great example.
Ja ma mõtlen, et selle
Regarding the language policies of these families, I think it's an important matter for these families. If there are different nationalities within a family, different mother tongues, then before they have children, they should discuss how they imagine the language use when they have children. It's a matter of equal treatment. It depends on where they live. It depends on the style of the spouses. Is one more dominant than the other? Not always. The couples are at equal footing. There might be a large language such as French, English or German, and they live in a country where this language is spoken, then it's difficult to keep an equal keel with the language policy. But this family lives in Sweden, where a third language is spoken, and Romanians and Estonians are on an equal footing in terms of languages. So I think this situation has been conducive to such language choices, but there are situations where, for example, an Estonian mother is marrying someone from abroad with more resources, and they have to fight for Estonian to be used. So they may feel, the other parent may feel left out of the communication between the mother and the child, and not be that interested in tolerating this. There are different choices for language use. One is not more right than the other. One parent, one language, one situation, one language, one day, one language. So what is the linguistic situation? But this family demonstrates conscious language use, and this has had a positive impact. But discussing this with colleagues, I think the identity matters more than statistics, that the language is taught to children, that we don't close any doors for them. They have an opportunity to acquire the language of both the parents to maintain those. And I think this is a bigger issue. If we talk about Estonia, we are a small country, few language users, but it doesn't matter what are the means for having more Estonian speakers, more friends of Estonia. We should use every opportunity to promote this. So I subscribe to what Andra said with both hands. Yes, not teaching a language closes doors, and we do not know when this young person might start feeling that these roots are very important for me, and they might not have the important instrument of this identity, and they might ask their parents, why you failed to teach this language to me, because I don't feel that I'm a whole. I would like to belong somewhere, but I'm not able to.
Reimo ja Violetta palusid
Reimo
veel
and
toonitada
Violetta
ühte
wanted to
mõtet,
emphasize one more thing.
et eesti keelt ei tohiks koju ära peita.
Estonian should not be hidden
Neil on
between the
oma
walls of the home.
tutvusringkonnas
They have
inimesi,
in their
kes räägivad
close circle people
ainult
who
kodus
speak
eesti keelt,
Estonian
aga
at
kui
home,
väljas igal pool, siis nad
but
räägivad rootsi
not
keelt.
outside their homes.
Aga
They
nemad
speak
rõhutasid
Swedish
ka seda,
there.
et nemad
They
räägivad
stressed
alati
that they
ja siis, kui nad
speak
on
Estonian
mänguväljakul,
or
siis nad
Romanian
teevad täpselt sama
everywhere,
asja, et
at all
räägivad mõlemas
times,
keeles.
at playgrounds and elsewhere.
Et just see, et nad ei saa aru täpselt, et miks siis
They do not
inimesed ei julge
understand
rääkida,
why
et
people
see
do not dare to
mitmekeelsus
speak in their mother tongue.
peaks olema tegelikult
The
ju
multilingualism
väärtus iseeneses,
should
et
be
ühtegi
a value in
keelt ei
itself.
tohiks nagu häbeneda.
No
Et alati
languages
sa saad ju seal
should be
mänguväljakul siis selgitada sellele
something to be
rootslasele,
ashamed
mis
of. You
keelt
can
te
always
räägite
explain in
või
what
millest
language
te
you're
räägite
speaking,
niimoodi.
about what
Et
you're
siis see
speaking.
nagu häbitunne, et me
This
peame
sense
ainult
of
seda kodus rääkima.
being
Ja siis
ashamed
nad
and
rääkisid ühe
speaking
toreda loo
only
sellest,
at
kuidas
home,
neil ühe
this
tuttava
obscure
pere
tongue,
siis laps
I think. And they gave an example of a
vanaema
child,
tuli külla
of someone they
Eestist,
knew.
siis
Their
vanaema
granny
ja
came
laps
to visit
rääkisid
from
omavahel
Estonia, so
eesti
the
keelt
granny and the
väga
child
ilusasti.
spoke
Vanaema
in
läks viis lapse
Estonian,
siis
but then the
lasteaeda,
granny
otse
took the
lasteaeda.
child to
Ja siis
a
laps
Swedish
ütleb seal
kindergarten,
lasteaeda
and
enne kui nad
approaching
jõudsid
the
sinna,
kindergarten,
vanaema, hoia nüüd
the
oma suu kinni,
child
et
says,
siin tohib ainult rootsi
"Granny,
keeles
now
rääkida."
keep quiet
Et nagu
because
see laps oli juba
you are
saanud
only
sisse
allowed to
selle
speak in
tunde,
Swedish here,
et,
because the child
et ainult
had
kodus
got
me
the sense
räägimegi
that
eesti keelt.
it's only okay
me
to
jõuame
speak in Estonian at
lasteaeda,
home.
siis
When
nüüd
we go to the
oleme
kindergarten,
muutmegi rootslasteks.
we have to become
Kuidas
Swedes.
te kommenteerite,
How
kas
do
see
you
tundub
comment?
teile tuttav lugu?
Does it ring any bells?
Niimoodi, et lastele on väga
I
oluline
think
kuuluda.
it's important for children to belong somewhere, and at some age the child may say that let us not speak this other language without having any negative feedback from the kindergarten. Maybe the child feels that he or she wouldn't belong to the group if I'm speaking a different language. They need to feel accepted. But the language choices of this family is positive. The attitude towards all these languages that they use, that they dare to speak them at all situations, and this creates the conditions for the language to become the foundation for their self-worth, and they are confident in several languages. And if this attitude becomes common, that we only speak in that language at home, and then this creates a ranking that some languages are more important than others.
So what is very important for the survival of the language is the image of the language, that we want to pass the language on. It is important for us, and it is really important, and on top of that we need to be motivated. And I would like to come back to this story of origin, because if we were to think about why a child does something or why a child wouldn't do something, then when it comes to the language, then the choice is made for the parent. When you have the child who lives abroad, who does not live in the natural language environment. So now the parent has made this logical choice for the child, then this linguistic self-confidence, expression I like, this is also provided by the parent. Do I speak this language with this child when I take the child to the kindergarten or when I'm at the playground? So I think that these things are interlinked. As parents, we do this work, we make this choice. So coming back to your question, why we might be afraid or we do not always want to speak Estonian. We might also be expanding this to Estonians in Estonia, that if there is a foreigner, we immediately switch to a foreign language. Maybe the researchers can comment this. Why do I behave like this? There are certain reasons. But at the same time, the fact is that very often in Estonia, when we talk to foreigners, we switch to a foreign language. I had this question regarding the sense of belonging, Martin, which you mentioned, that if the child goes now to kindergarten or goes to some sort of hobby class, when it comes to Sweden and Finland, this sense of belonging and multilingualism, so it's kind of clear that multilingualism is not extraordinary. It's fairly standard in our societies. This part of the curriculum as well, that you have right to study your mother tongue at school or kindergarten. If there are no teachers available, they provide the headphones, and then there is an Estonian language or Mandarin language book which the child can then listen. So it is included in the curriculum that we are multilingual society. But did you have any other thoughts regarding belonging? Yes, indeed, in the Nordic countries, the attitudes towards languages and multilingualism are very open, because they're not as open when it comes to a lot of bigger nations where the presumption is that everybody speaks this certain language. So you have to go against the mainstream a bit more, where sometimes there could be an attitude like people are not very pleased with you speaking another language. So societies are different, because a certain society, then maybe you switch very easily to a bigger language, which is a problem for the Eastern European countries more than in Denmark or Norway, for example. So there is a certain sense of national pride which has a say in it. So to these parents who are listening to us, so I would like to encourage you, if you take the child to kindergarten school, then you should speak Estonian to your child, so speak your own language. Because no hobby class or school can perform this task for you. But let us continue with the next question. In Sweden, for example, over 10 years, we have been very active. We have had this campaign for the parents that we want to defend the child's right to the mother tongue and the cultural heritage. So this is a quote which comes from the Article 30 of the UN Convention of Child, and which says that every child has a right to express themselves in their mother tongue, to participate in their own culture and national values. But when it comes to this kind of campaign, then it has been actually very hard for us to get attention, because people say, oh, it's something political or something legal. It's not real. But we need something more practical, which makes parents think about the multilingualism. For example, when it comes to the family Juks, Violetta's parents are monolingual because they only speak Romanian, but the children could not even speak to their grandparents if they were not able to speak Romanian. So, but now I would like to ask you, what other motivators are there for multilingualism? So, what would you recommend to use if we want to organize campaigns in our communities? So how exactly you can then approach the parents and explain to them that multilingualism is good and important? The main thing is that you never know when a certain language might be of use. And if possible, of course, if the preconditions are there, so if the child has parents, grandparents who speak this language and might not speak any other languages, and if you are visiting the home of your grandparents, where there might be some friends, because then all of this opens more doors, also allows for different professions, because you can be part of different environments and you can feel you are home regardless where you are. These, for example, in this video, the children who spoke four languages, of course, they have more opportunities which are not there for the people who speak only one or two languages. So this functional advantage is definitely there, in addition to your origins. I think the key here is the cultural identity. So this is definitely not something we would need to could shut away from the child. So every language is a wealth. Learning one language helps you to learn other languages as well. So would it be that you can practice your other languages at work or with your family? But in addition to all these other reasons that it's easier for you to learn other languages, then I think that the key is really that we are able to maintain this cultural identity. And this child has the possibility to be an Estonian or any other nationality. I do agree. I think that the main message should be that the practical value of the language, because we do not have many people who study languages just because they're interested, because usually most of the languages come for practical reasons. It's a mother tongue or you need a language. As Martin said, contacts with Estonia, if you have your grandparents or friends here, of all the different interests that you have an interest in this for this language, that interesting events in Estonia, watching Estonian films or cartoons. So you never know when this seed might take root. Because what is definitely true is that most people, whether we want it or not, if we've gone to another country, we might not pay so much attention to learning this our own native language, because we left Estonia for different reasons, or might not be a conscious choice, but also the reason is that the children who are abroad often they are part of the local education system. So they go to the local school, they have own friends and hobbies. So there is a time factor which is part of it as well, because this motivation package is important. I do believe more we have a practical usage for language, easier it is. And maybe also we can offer different choices, the TV, radio, music, cartoons, so that the child would not feel that this is kind of like an adult thing or this is the only practical value for this language. But we should really make sure that there are better options, so that the child is surrounded by the language. Another argument could be that it makes you special, especially for the families who live somewhere where there's a very big country, culture which is very well known and which is very commonplace. So, and then if you have a very special and this secret culture and secret identity, and all these facets which you have as a strength when you are living among this much bigger nation. So when you're a teenager, children do not want to be really special, then it might not be considered to be a strength. But I think that when you have young adults, then if there is something, an extra identity which makes you special, then this is definitely something which will be an advantage. Especially if you want to find friends and you'll become more interesting. Minister also mentioned that this is the secret language, but of course we have different communities, different cities where people live, and when it comes to our children in Stockholm, we have to explain to them that if in metro or train you speak Estonian, make sure that it's a correct Estonian, because is what has happened, that is where they don't think that the person next to me actually will understand my secret language, and then you might end up in an embarrassing situation with your vocabulary. So this, with your secret language, it really depends where you live and how many other Estonians that might be there. But let us talk a little bit about research as well. Estonians of the older generation in other countries were encouraged to practice multilingualism based on articles of Els Oksaare. In the Swedish Estonian community, it has been very popular because she lived in Germany, I believe, and she, during her time, some of the researchers claimed, and maybe there's some other people who still say that multilingualism is harmful and it does not give you fluency in any language. So I'm sure you know the situation today better. So who are the most prestigious linguists today? And when it comes to multilingualism, if you want to get now into details here, then what do the researchers say? Or do we have some good research materials, and do we have some even just some materials for everyday people? I would say bilingualism or multilingualism is definitely well. If we would talk about Estonian researchers, Birme Vihman has done research, and Anna Versiko as well. So these will be good materials. There are some materials provided as well, which answer to most common questions. So this is, it busts some of the myths which unfortunately are still prevailing. So therefore it is good that if this material is available, which gives this message very clearly that bilingualism or multilingualism is definitely wealth. When it comes to bilingualism, we have two other sort of prototypes. One is replacement bilingualism, and this is often linked to the motivation processes where we have the home languages which is being used less and less. It deteriorates, but at the same time you have not acquired this dominating language fully. So it can happen in a certain context where the family or the environment does not support bilingualism, that there is a moment of time you do not speak the native tongue at home, and they speak the dominant language. But at the same time, you do not fully speak either. So, of course, over time, the child will acquire the dominant language and the mother tongue will start disappearing. So the bilingualism, this is also possible that things are not working out well. So at home, you should keep an eye on it to make sure that there is a balanced bilingualism so that both languages are being developed. And here the researchers are of the same opinion that if you acquire two languages at the same time, then there are no ill effects if it's carried out in a family following this kind of language policy, which balances both languages. But of course, there might be this sort of assimilation policy, which does not work out that well. If you think of the article by Mati Hint, why during the Soviet era, the bilingualism towards the end of the Soviet era, when Mati Hint wrote his article, where based on research, he said that this is the way you have that you don't speak either the language, and but of course if you have this sort of this kind of environment where you have the forced acquisition of a foreign language, then this might happen. But it really depends how these languages develop, and it can be harmful. So it's not unconditionally and always good. But at the same time, there are no limits to how many languages a child can learn, 3 or 4, as you could hear. So a child at the age of 6.5 months can differentiate between different sounds of different languages, but you have to have enough input so that the language aimed at the child at all the active languages, because this is how all these languages develop. So what is important is that you talk to the child, so this one language would not disappear. At the same time, it has been proven that multilingualism is supporting the brain development as well. So this is beneficial when it comes to learning other languages or in general acquisition of knowledge. So today there should be no question in this regard why multilingualism will be useful and why should we study languages as well or study anything. Why would it be harmful? So I believe that we should all be supportive that we need to have lifelong learning, lifelong language learning and so forth. I believe this is very important what you just said, because you need to talk, because vocabulary is very important, and in addition to simple language at home, you need to read different books, we need to watch films and so forth. We have Zoom and Skype and everything else available as well. So this enables the grandparents to communicate with the grandchildren. And these are the opportunities we should actively use. During Els Oksaare, it was a lot harder to maintain your language because, first of all, there was the Iron Curtain, which did not enable you to communicate with your family members, and the technical means did not exist. So it was only writing the letters, and for many children who were growing up in the refugee families, this environment was limited. In Sweden and Canada and United States and Australia, the communities were there and they were large enough so that children could talk to each other. But this has changed a great deal today, so traveling has become a lot easier too. Well, we'll see how it goes, because flying is not as cheap as it was about 10 years ago. And in addition to that, we have all the events and children's camps and continuous education, Sunday schools, Estonian events, community events, which could be held in the foreign countries or held in Estonia, so the youth exchange language camps as well. So if you end up in the right place, this is why this journey will take you to the next level, because there is no one single route, because I like to think about it that there are many different options and ways how you can reach the end result. So there's not only one right solution. And how important it is to have this sort of friend in a language. More language users you have with whom you can communicate, the better it is for you. If you think about different contexts and different possibilities to speak the language. So grandparents, for example, this is what I mentioned before, that this is very interesting. This is what we're actually studying right now. What is the language of the grandparents? How do you talk to grandparents? And what kind of language do the grandparents use when they address a child? So this is what we're going to look into. So we want to see what happens there. So more we have people using different languages and of the different language backgrounds, better it is. I have a thought, and I thought I'll share with you today, and I want to try it out to see if you think it's a good idea as well. When the Republic of Estonia celebrated its 100th anniversary, then the decision was made that to all the children who received the first ID, they received a book called Little Tree, Pisikapuu. So this is a book with different STEM text and songs. So what do you think that if we have Estonian citizen who is born abroad, should we make this gift to them and include maybe some information sheet for them regarding the principles of multilingualism? And I mentioned the UN Convention on the Right of the Child, so the parents would be aware of it. And perhaps we could also include a placekeeper there from the local community, which provides these contact informations So all these organizations in that region who organize Estonian language studies or Estonian language activities. So do you think that this should be justified expense? I think this is a very good idea. This is something we should definitely continue. This is a very good tradition. Estonian Center of Children's Literature has started this tradition. There are some older books, younger authors included, so this topic was discussed quite recently, where we thought about it in the Children's Literature Center because we thought that this is our beautiful Estonian language from different authors, but maybe you can also translate these texts into different languages, so we can compare different languages and maybe think more detail about certain words. Maybe this kind of possibility is also there. A book where you can read stories for children or sing songs. This is something which is very important. Because the older population remember these stories, but if they're all in different books, then if you live abroad, you might not have such an extensive library so that they can their best stories. It has a symbolic value as well, especially if it's a nice print, and maybe you include a child's name, so there is a place for the name. So maybe this provides this link as well, that you have this book, this is the book you received, and when you're a little bit older, you know that this is the book you received when you were born. And all sorts of information is always useful. And this is something, information you provide before the child is born. So this should come of the part of the studies at school. So there's also a question how we can get to these people when, as they're leaving Estonia. So the right moment would be when this person gets on the plane or on the ship. Then this is the time when they receive this information. So to raise this awareness, make people think about it, that when you're abroad, you have this right to learn in your native languages, support your children in your native tongue. When it comes to this book, this project, then in 2018, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs started this project, and I'm very much in favor. If we could provide this information to more people, because in foreign Estonian community it tends to be the same people always, because there is not much of a rotation there. But a paper is something which you will have. You need your documents, you need your ID. When you are in that country, you need to come back to Estonia. So this is a good way to get these people. From the embassy, we can get these people who are usually not participating in our community event. But now, a last comment. As a final comment, if we're talking about virtual Estonians, we need to spend resources. If you say that people are leaving, they are living somewhere else, they're coming back, but they do need information when they are living somewhere else. They have to have access to this information, that they have a channel. So this is something which is very important in the information society today, that the virtual Estonians will be a good place of networking. Estonia makes sense if we have people, language and culture. So this is all these things we need. And would follow on the last topic, the books and languages are important, because if you think about the languages, then there is nothing which gives you as much of the language than the language provided by the books. Of course, in different language studies, we have looked at it, because our spontaneous language is not as rich as it is in the books. And there is a practical tool which you can use, we can read to children, and this is something which is very important to all of us. And this is the end of our panel discussion now. I would like to thank Martin, Andra and Andero for this good conversation, and I hope that the listeners were able to get answers to their questions, which you might have had in your heads for years. And hopefully many families were inspired by this panel to support multilingualism and Estonian language.
Ja ütleksime siit võib-olla sellise tähtsama,
What is the most important message here is that multilingualism is a real present to your children.
Järgmiseks külaliseks on meil Eesti muusik
is an Estonian musician, Valter Soosalu.
Tere, Valter!
Good afternoon, Valter.
Meil on täna teemaks mitmekeelsus.
We're talking about multilingualism.
Sa mängid ka mitmel
You
keelel.
play multiple strings. Please tell us about your multistringual friend. Where does it come from?
Mis keeles sa temaga mängid ja suhtled?
In what language do you interact with it? This is a harpeggi. It reminds me of a kannel. No matter how much I explain, everyone always says that it's in fact a kannel. And I said that, something similar, but not quite. It's a relative of keyboards, but then they come to the conclusion that it's still a kannel. Its name is harpeggi. It's a foreign word. But I still say that it's the kannel. Often when I'm invited to play, then they say, please come with your new instrument, because they are not bold enough to try to pronounce the name harpeggi. It has 24 strings. And it's built so that you play the strings and it resembles a guitar, but the technique and psychology is more like that of a keyboard. So it combines the good traits of a keyboard and a string instrument. Will you be playing it in Estonian? Let us put it this way. When I'm playing and singing, I've done this using different languages, but what I like about this instrument is that you can do a lot of different things, generate different sounds, soft like this. Put more rhythm in it.
Temaga saab mängida lausa bassi.
You can play bass with it.
Ja nii edasi, nii edasi. Elektrikitarri kõlad, kõik on olemas.
It has all the sounds of an electric guitar.
Nii et rock, jazz, klassika, kõik.
Rock, jazz, classical music, whatever you want, we can do it
See on igatahes väga
on
uhke
a
kannel
arpeggi.
kõikides
It's a
keeltes.
good kannel, no matter what language you speak, in 25 different languages.
Aga sa ise, kui mitut erinevat keelt sa ise räägid?
How many languages do you speak yourself? I'm fluent in Estonian and English. I can bluff in French and Italian, and for some reason I'm not quite foreign to speaking English and Estonian with the Latvian accent. But now we shall hear a piece of music on your 24-string instrument. You'll be playing. I would like to play something in Estonian, and I will play a piece by Ehala. The song I would like to be The Night. We will not hear the lyrics because this will be an instrumental version so that you can enjoy the sound of the harpeggi. Good luck.
Suur tänu
Thank
Valter
you very much
Soosalule.
to Valter Soosalu.
Nüüd on aga ka
Now
aeg käes
it's
alustada
time
mitmekeelsuse teema
to
teise
proceed with
vestluspaneeliga.
the second panel
Kuid enne
on the topic of multilingualism. But before we
sissejuhatuseks videotervitus
begin with the panel,
New
we
Yorgi
will
Eesti
see a
kooli
video message
juhatajalt
from the head
Merike
of the New York
Barboraki.
Estonian School, Merike Barborak.
Kallid eestlased
Dear
üle terve
Estonians all over
maailma,
the world,
armsad
dear
eestlase
people
ja eesti
who
keele
care about and
edasiandjad.
uphold the national
Tervitan
identity
teid
and
kõiki
Estonian
New Yorgi
language.
Eesti koolis.
Greetings from the New York
New
Estonian
Yorgi Eesti
School.
kool
New
on
York
ilmselt
Estonian
üks
School is one of the
vanimaid
oldest of its
selletaolisi
kind in
koole
the world.
See asutati
Founded
juba
already in 1934 by the so-called economic migrants. As much as we know, the school at the time was similar to today's play group, involving dancing, singing and theater. On top of that, they learned Estonian, because already then the Estonians here were worried about the language skills of their offspring. The school was reformed and transformed when the war refugees arrived in the late 1940s, for whom the Estonian house in New York became the second Estonia. Teachers who were not able to find jobs to match their qualifications were committed to developing the Estonian school whilst hoping to return to Estonia in the immediate future. The education of children was not to be put at risk. That is why we still have traditional Estonian language, history and cultural lessons at our schools today, with a bit of folk dancing, singing and art, as well as celebrating important occasions at school or within the community. For decades, we have tried to follow this course and stick to the concept of a more traditional school. For instance, our pupils are not given their certificate unless they have passed the Estonian language, history and culture exams. Nobody fails these days, of course. And sometimes the exams are very practical, such as going shopping together and conversing in Estonian on the way there. But the traditions are responsible for sustaining the school and the community. Let us too uphold them. Having said that, some traditions need an overhaul. We want the children to have fun and be engaged at school, and we no longer make them reproduce the grammatical rules. There is a fine line between wanting to learn and the language and hating it, and this line should not be crossed either at home or at school. The parents know where the line should be drawn, and the cooperation with parents is very important for us. I was asked to talk about the joys and worries of the Estonian school. I have to admit that in hindsight, some problems have rather proven to be sources of delight. We can't see having more children than the 4-story Estonian house building could accommodate as a problem. Some lessons had to take place sitting on the stairs, and we had to find teachers to match all different age groups and levels of language proficiency. Even today, after the devastating effects of the pandemic, we are happy to see that the families have found their way back to the school. We are also delighted about the families who moved back to Estonia as a result of the pandemic. Even if the school has shrunk, the tighter knit we are, and the better our links with Estonia are thanks to those who have moved back there. These links are important and have to amount to more than one visit to one's granny in Estonia once a year. We have done well in New York. We keep hosting dignitaries as well as outstanding artists from Estonia. We hope to continue with this because it makes us feel appreciated, and the children see all the interesting people and undertakings that come from Estonia. And one never knows what the future has in store for us. Even President Ilves attended our school for some time as a child. The biggest delight stems from young children who come with their parents to our school, and then growing up, they remain active members of the community. We have many such examples. The objective of the Estonian school cannot be only to teach the language. Meeting twice a month is not enough for anyone to master the language. All we can offer is support and means. The objective of the school is becoming Estonians together. It is difficult and sometimes unfair to achieve this on your own without peers, to whom to complain that one had to get up at 6 a.m. and spend 2 hours driving to Manhattan on a Saturday morning. Lifelong friendships have grown out of our school, both among the pupils as well as parents. And for some reason, our teachers who work as volunteers without getting paid do not want to leave the school. We are proud that one of the most senior teachers outside Estonia, Ivi Tamm, works at our school. She will celebrate her 50th work anniversary this year. All Estonian schools, at least in North America, face the same challenge. the communities have shrunk. The number of children attending the schools has decreased. So what's the way forward? But such challenges are good, because a school, and that means also Estonian schools outside Estonia, have to adapt to new times and requirements. That allows us to build a new, better, cooler Estonian identity. As one image is supposed to be better than 1,000 words, I would like to offer you a glimpse of the history of the Estonian school in New York. The images are not organized chronologically, because regardless of the times, today's students are the same as the students were 50 years ago, full of mischief and reluctant to come to school often. But history has shown that they have a lot of love for Estonia in their hearts. Good luck and perseverance to all Estonian families and schools across the globe in upholding and advancing the Estonian language and identity.
Eelmises paneelis arutasime
We
mitmekeelsuse
discussed
üle
about multilingualisms
kus räägitakse
on
iga
the example of
nelja
the
keelt.
Juks family, where 4 languages are spoken daily. Now we will continue with maintaining the Estonian language abroad, and we will give you some practical ideas about how to learn and teach Estonian language. I'm joined here by experienced Estonian language teachers, Kerli Liksor, Helja Kirber, and a journalist, translator, and tour guide Riina Kindlam.
Olge nii kenad ja alustuseks
Would you be so kind
tutvustage, et
and
kuidas teie siis selle
begin with
eesti
saying
keele hoidmisega
how
välismaal olete seotud?
you are engaged in upholding and maintaining the Estonian language? I used to live in London for 10 years. I worked at the London Estonian School. I taught the children. I helped to run the school. Then I'm linked with language security, which functions in London and online. We have students outside London. Anyone can join. And then the global school is where I also teach Estonian. These are my main links, and my own daughter is also bilingual, so I get tips from this experience.
Mina olen siis praegu üleilmakooli juht ja
I'm now the head of the global school and a teacher of Estonian language and literature at the school. And this is a virtual school, the global school, and we have students from 35 countries. I have also lived in Finland for a number of years, and until now I am in the board of the Estonian language education society in Finland, and this society has paid a lot of attention on teachers of Estonian language and of course all Estonian speaking or children who are learning Estonian. I am a previous Estonian living abroad. I've used this description for 20 years when I've lived in Estonia, but my family members are still living in Toronto. I visit them, I take my children with me every summer. I also work in different positions, but one of my favorite occupations has been writing to Estonian papers outside Estonia. Weekly editions of the papers in New York and Toronto are published, and this is how I'm always reminded of the communities there, and I think about the contribution of these communities to my life on a daily basis, and as I know that the people are eager to learn the language and improve it, so I try to write and I try to develop the language, not being a linguist myself. Before we move on with the discussion, I would like to remind to our spectators that if you would like to submit comments or questions, then please use the virtual forum platform whatsapp.com, and please take part in the lottery. You will find information in the bottom of the screen, and please respond to the question and submit your email address. Think about this excellent opportunity to come. But now we can move on and start with tips and ideas about how to learn and teach Estonian language. There are different methods for learning and teaching languages. The easiest way is by living in the language environment. Come to Estonia, you will learn the language quickly. Language immersion is another well-known method, which is considered very efficient, especially in the context of bilingual methods. And we saw from the video the example of the Juks family who used different methods. They created the bilingualism at home, the language immersion context. They read fairy tales, watched films, communicated with their family members. They looked up the local communities there. The children attended Sunday schools, toddler groups, summer camps, so on and so forth. And when the children reached school age, they decided to enroll their children at the Stockholm Estonian school. And this is a school, a primary school on the basis of the Swedish curriculum that was founded in 1945. So it's a primary school. You attend it every working day. So this is one of the oldest functioning schools. This is the optimal set of opportunities that a parent in Sweden can give. And the other element to supplement it would be the Estonian kindergarten, but this was not used by that family. So what would you recommend on the basis of your experiences to parents? Where should one begin with their language learning? Because this depends on where the family is living. These wonderful opportunities which are available in Stockholm and also in Finland, where tuition in native language can be provided. These are not available everywhere in the world.
Meie Eesti koolide logod.
You can see on the screen the logos of different Estonian schools throughout the world, but I would like to... not all the schools are represented, but please have a look. There are quite many of those. But let us begin which would be the first steps? You should start speaking to the child in Estonian when the child is still in your belly. When my child was a baby and her father is from Slovakia, we were living in London when she was born. We tended to speak in English more because we both wanted to understand what was being said. But of course we know that this has an impact on the child's linguistic development. So my granny said that I should stop immediately when she heard that, because saying that I need to speak in one language and so should my partner. So yes, we have the one parent, one language rule, but now living in Estonia, sometimes I contribute to acquiring the Slovak skills because this is the minority language here, and my daughter gets more Estonian, so we do not have to have the rule applied uniformly at all circumstances. The different hobbies that were mentioned, and the idea that when a child is born, it should receive all kinds of information about the different opportunities available, and there are so many groups for babies and different solutions. These do not suit to all children, but the global school and in the language group we have cooking classes which can be attended by entire families. There are many opportunities. Today, the situation is much better than it has been previously. We have the internet filled with all kinds of opportunities, and there are different levels. The first one being the parents searching for information, reading, watching, using different applications. Then if there's a parent who is able to and willing to regularly teach their child, they can use paper textbooks, which are wonderful, but sometimes not easily accessed. But on top of them, we have many digital resources. There are two sites, Opik.ee and Maurus Publishing House, which have a lot of digital textbooks, and then also learning bites. And this Opik.ee, which has been developed by the Avita Publishing House, has textbooks for primary school level and natural sciences books for primary school children. And these are not just PDF copies of paper textbooks, but different interactive exercises are included. But this would require from the parent to have a system for using them, for example, every week. The next stage would be getting some support, and this would include different options. For example, the global school, üleilmakool, which would allow for attending no matter where you live, if there are no local opportunities like a society or a restaurant school. But in Estonia, we also have seen advances in the online babysitting services, which have developed into playful lessons. Now they call themselves KidioCall.ee, which provides lessons for children from the age of 3, and they have fairy tale lessons, playful meetups. For example, if the parents need help that they would meet other children who speak Estonian. Then, of course, everyone can attend the Üleilmakool Global School. We are very international in our activities. We teach children from the age of 5 until the age of 20 different courses, different opportunities that you can look up on our website. And I would also like to mention one opportunity for secondary level students or older people who are interested in learning the language. There's the site edumus.ee, which offers 2-month courses on a wide range of topics. And this, of course, is, again, virtual, so that you can enroll from no matter where in the world. So I mentioned the virtual opportunities, but I'm quite certain that the foundation for this is the local society or school, because it has a different meaning. What we provide is centered at teaching and learning, but this community aspect requires a local society or school. But these are becoming more numerous, which is very positive. Just a follow-up question. Do you know if this information is available somewhere so people can look it up? I checked that the Estonian Institute has some information on their website, but I have had a plan to compile a list of these resources to the website of the Üleilmakool or Global School. So this will be available very soon. I'm the product of the old school. We had the grandparents, now we talk about virtual resources. We had a system where people went to the school, different generations, one after another, and the identity and language skills were based on the generations. So this no longer is the case. Now we can people live everywhere. North America has a lot of people who have moved there quite recently, and there are language teachers that provide a lot of support, but we feel that the society as a whole is in need of linguistic support. There's a lot of will. There are a lot of meetups. The willingness can be felt. One can identify as an Estonian if you speak Estonian, if you don't speak. I have taken my children to the camps and seen different children there. Some are able to maintain the language better, some worse. Some have sought out help, some not. But we have reached a crossroads where the language might be deteriorating, and the links to Estonia might be fewer than they have been, but there might be the willingness, if there's information available about the resources available in Estonian, then this might be used. But I think one key word is contact. Just to have contact to hear the language. But if your own language skills are not that good, you are not willing to speak, you are afraid of making mistakes, then I would recommend listening to the radio, watching TV, just be immersing oneself in the language. You can listen to the radio when driving in the camps. There might be a background of programs in Estonian just to have the language available all the time. Good music in Estonian. That's a good idea.
Raadiotegijatele. Jälle üks spontaanne küsimus tekkis mul siin.
I have a spontaneous question listening to Merike's introduction from New York, that we do not pay so much attention to the grammar, but what's important is that the learning process would be fun. When thinking about young children, we never teach them grammar. They learn the grammar automatically when hearing good language being spoken by their family members. But if the language skills are deteriorating, for example, in the North America, then they need a background of good Estonian, and the web resources are available, but it doesn't substitute your own mother speaking to you in that language when you are still a baby. Yes, of course, I do not think that the online resources would be a substitute for the language spoken within a family. This would be the foundation of language learning, but the more resources that are available to engage in language learning, the better. But of course, these online resources are no substitute for actual domestic situations, and we shouldn't forget that there are a lot of families and children living abroad who will be returning to Estonia, or who will be coming to Estonia. And if a child returns and has to attend an Estonian school, then it would be good if they had learned some Estonian beforehand, because they need to be able to study in Estonian. Of course, this is difficult, but I do hope that in our school, the global school, we have maybe been able to contribute to making this return smoother. On the one hand, the Estonian language skills, but also the other subjects, for example, history or social studies. One of our missions is to support people who come to Estonia or return to Estonia, and this is done on 3 different levels. The children and families who come to any form in primary school. The second group is those coming to secondary school. And I know about Finland that a substantial number of young people come to Estonian secondary schools every year. And the third group is the young people coming to attend Estonian universities. And you know very well about this, and I hope your loved ones are doing well. So we need to support all the groups. They need to pass their Estonian exams, and we need to provide the support to those young people enrolling in Estonian universities and higher education institutions. Before we proceed, Riina, I would like to talk about the summer houses aspect. The tradition has been long. When the refugees arrived from 1944, these were launched, and the tradition has remained very viable. And there are different options in Sweden, in England, in the United States, I think too. Lakewood, where there's guides and scouts, and a summer house on Long Island.
Ma mõtlen just see, et kui peab olema tore ja lõbus ja
If everything needs to be fun and in summertime in Sweden, what we do is we invite children from Estonia so that they will enrich us with their Estonian skills, and our Swedish children would be able to listen to Estonian being spoken by Estonian children. So we would mix the different groups, and this would contribute to language learning. That's true. And teachers come from Estonia. It's interesting if people come from Estonia to Sweden, their common language might be English rather than Estonian or Swedish.
Aga räägime nüüd sellest stsenaariumist, et kui nüüd on peres ikkagi juhtunud see, et lapsed on juba teismelised, aga nendega kodus ei ole räägitud eesti keelt. Kas siis on rong läinud?
Is it then too late?
Mina oma kogemusest
Based on my own experience, I can say that if I've been teaching children who are only starting to study Estonian as a foreign language when they're teenagers, then it's very difficult to teach them, especially if the mother perhaps is motivated, but the child is not really motivated. And with Helja, we discussed this as well. That if you have a teenager and then the mother's motivation is not really of interest for you anymore, then it is really difficult to teach. Because if the basis is there, if the mother has spoken Estonian a little bit, even if it has not been too all the time, but it's not ever way too late, because I've been teaching adults as well, because who have had Estonian roots, and they have been a little bit upset. Why didn't their parents speak Estonian to them? And then now they have to work a lot harder and have to start studying Estonian. But this is all about motivation. So if the child finds this motivation, then it's a lot easier.
Jah, ma olen muidugi Kerliga täiesti nõus,
I agree with Kerli.
et see on keerulisem.
It
Aga
is
samas,
harder, but at the same time, based on our school's experience of 10 years, then it is possible
peaaegu nullist alustada,
to start from zero as a teenager.
Aga seesama motivatsioon,
But this motivation is important. This is something we already mentioned, that we need to repeat once again. Without the motivation, support of the family is not really possible.
Nii tugevat motivatsiooni, eks ole, kuskil kõrvalt.
Because you can't get this outside motivation, really.
Ütleme, õppetegevus või
And
kool,
of
eks
course,
ole, saab
the
ka
studying
mõjutada
or
sellega,
school can have an impact,
ongi nagu huvitav või
that
on
it is
tore või
interesting or
õpetajaga
it's
tekib,
fun,
eks ole,
and
niisugune
you
hea
have a good
side,
contact
et see on
with
ka
the teacher.
motivatsioon, aga
So
see
this is
põhi
also
peab muidugi
motivation,
perelt tulema.
but
Aga mis on
the basis
jällegi
has to come
nagu
from the
väga
family.
minu jaoks olnud üllatav
So
on see,
what
et
has
meil
been
on
of
siis
quite surprising for me that at our school we have seen explosion of last few years of these students who are like age of sort of 6, 7, 8, 9.
aastased, kes peaaegu eesti keelt ei oska
And
või
they
väga vähe
almost
oskavad,
don't speak Estonian at all, or they speak it very little, but their family, mother or father who's Estonian, has suddenly woken up and realized that they actually would like the child to speak Estonian.
See on läinud meil nagu päris hästi,
And I think it's been going quite well for us, because there are some children who have been with us for many years, so they keep ongoing, and of course the language skills do come, but there are some children they say that the child understands, but they don't want to speak. They don't want to speak Estonian. They don't want to speak with the parent, but they want to speak with the teacher. But with these children, of course, there's individual lessons or small groups on web or over internet, so Kerli knows how it works. So it has been a surprise for me that there is this interest.
On olemas.
The interest is there, also in these families, where this language has not been actually used from the beginning.
harjumused on jah raske murda.
So of course, habits are hard to break. And one thing you didn't mention that what might happen, the young people in all these communities, if they're born there, they speak the community language with each other. They speak some Estonian, but they can't be funny, they can't be flirty in Estonian. But if you add more Estonians into this mix, in Canada, for example, these summer camps we have, they're a bit hired in order to maintain this Estonian language. Then these things will happen. As with teenagers, you might have some other interests as well. Love works. Not that you would need to leave home as yet, but when it comes to school options, work, education. If you think about Australia and places further away, that maybe children would think more about Estonia as well. We should not underestimate children because they're quite clever and they're courageous. And if you have a hobby in Estonia, this also helps. That I've had this experience myself, that a young man from the United States who's come to Viljandi, to Ethno camp, and plays different instruments and attends these music camps, and there he says that Estonia is his future for sure. So this is one of the approaches, and that means, of course, that you need to come to Estonia to attend camps. So there are quite many camps. So this is something which could be of interest for this young person. I have a few examples from Sweden. Because we've been working in this, because we have a baby school, different options, and then suddenly that's it, the school is out. Ja siis me soojendasime üles noorte rahvaülikooli. We decided to restart the youth university from 1957, and this is something which is popular. And we invite the young people from Estonia, and Veera Lääne from Sweden, who had spoken Estonian only to her grandmother, came to this public university and listened to Kristiina Ehin about Estonian poetry, and she wrote a poem in Estonian and found that it was really beautiful. Another example recently from our community was sports, and this idea came from Canada, in Toronto. They have volleyball camps, and our young people decided to also play volleyball, and one parent called a couple of times after young people had been playing volleyball, and the condition was that they have to speak only Estonian. And the parent called and said, I'm so grateful because the child came home and started speaking Estonian to me and had never spoken Estonian to the mother before, although the child actually did speak Estonian. So there are some thoughts. This is what we can do with young people. So this is not too late. In your keelekindlus, you have a cooking program in your language school as well. So if our lessons are meant for ages 8 and up, but for cooking, you can come with the whole family, little ones included. So you can just learn by doing. And you can join online as well, so you don't have to be actually present. So if there is an Estonian language to cooking. But can you tell us a little bit more? How do you organize this cooking lessons? We have had different subjects because we had Estonian food. And then we thought about these families. Maybe father is or mother is of a different nationality. Then we wanted to include these cuisines as well. Italy, for example, it has some African countries and they're cooking. And so we have an Estonian language menu. We send in advance, or rather the recipe. What are the ingredients which are necessary? Then we've gone shopping, everything is prepared, and then our cooking teacher will provide you information over internet. And we had Italian cuisine then the family who had the father was from Italy, then these children also described the connections of this food, what the names mean. So, but the whole activity is all in Estonian. And then the students can give feedback, how did they do, and then they can talk about this food. Did the food, for example, is raised well or not? And then we can share photos and what was the end result. So this is what we do. And there is no age restriction. So the parent could participate or regardless of the age of the children. On the Mother Tongue Day, we had a new tradition in New York. I think it was a language cafe. So this is also a good idea. In Toronto, we have a new Estonian center. So far, we think that we always kind of speak it, we don't speak it, but I think it's a very good role model that we do get together and we talk to each other and young people get support in their language. Because it's important to organize these language cafes for the young people, because in Sweden we have the language cafes for the retired people who they meet once a week. So this is the only possibility for them to speak Estonian. So maybe this is another good idea. Another thing, when my daughter was 3 years old, then we listened to for there was a singing club, laulupesu, and you paid a certain amount. You got a couple of videos every month. I think they're not active anymore. So they were from Tartu, so they're like, it's 20-25 minutes. So these are the songs you can sing along, and they had some movements to go with the songs. And so this is something which can do over internet. So it's not interactive exactly because they can't see you, but you can see what they have prepared. And now let's take a question from the website platform. And the question is, what are your recommendations for studying Estonian as an adult, especially if you do not live in Estonia and you do not hear Estonian every day? Because we've been mostly talking about families and children. But we also have people who are adults who would like to get advice.
Ei ole kuskil kohapeal võimalik, eks ole, nagu päris
So if you cannot really attend language school, because there are some places where you can get Estonian language lessons, then of course we need to do things over internet, and we have
keskkonnad nagu Keeleklikk
ja
Keeletee.
And the website Keeleklikk starts from the basics level. It's based on English and based on Russian. So for an adult language learner, it works really well if you would like to study independently. And Estonian language schools actually organize Zoom classes as well. So Keeleklikk, which is K-L-I-K-K at the end. There is Tahela.com, I think. Tahela. They offer web lessons, and Malbesti organizes groups. So there are quite many lessons over internet. That's another idea, because we need to really comprise this list of opportunities where you can get to this Global Estonian website, for example. But we do have some, but this could be one place where this information will go. But also it's possible when you have a small group in New York. I know there was adult language learners, then they can get their own private teacher for the group from Estonia then, or virtually right now over internet, because of course right now we have such good possibilities to organize things over internet. But it depends of course where you live, but if you live in a bigger center, there might be others as well. So if you look at the hobby schools, because some of the hobby schools, they have something for their children, but at the same time there are parents as well who do not speak Estonian, but there could be some other people as well who will attend.
Nüüd on veel võimalus viimaseks repliigiks.
Now the last comment.
Oi. Kas sul on ikka südamel see olukord praegu, et eesti keele rääkimise tase välismaal võiks olla
level of Estonian being spoken abroad should be better?
Jah, ma ei oska öelda.
Well, yes, I think we should research on that. It's quite complicated because there are challenges everywhere, of course, but I think there should be a bit of a rebirth or a bit of a renaissance.
Inimestel on, ma julgeks öelda, et eesti keelt tagataskus.
Because people do have Estonian, but they're not really used to using it. It's kind of like starting exercising. It could be that there is something which should spark, so that you would have a certain situation where you would initiate this use of the Estonian language. And once it starts, once you've decided that I'll go jogging every day, then you do go jogging every day. So I think this is always worth it, because if you come to Estonia, get new contacts, open the doors so that children can also make decisions about the future. But now, unfortunately, we've run out of time. And that's the thing, if you start talking about all these interesting topics, then there's a lot of things to say. But I would like to thank you very much, Kerli, Helja, and Riina. And we were able to share lots of good ideas and a lot of good advice how to maintain your Estonian abroad.
Tervitan kõiki eestlasi sellel imeilusal kevadisel päeval siin Lõuna-Eesti metsade vahel. Nüüd ma peaksin muidugi põhjendama, et miks me siin oleme. Aga me oleme siin lihtsalt sellepärast, et metsas saab istuda ainult väga lühikest aega kevadel, siis kui sääsed pole veel välja tulnud. Sellepärast, et mulle ikka kangesti meeldib Uku Maasingu mõte, kes mõtisles umbes seda viisi, et eestlased on
that Estonians are smart people, but we do not really have this amazing mental system as in the countries of Orient. And what he said was that mosquitoes have messed up our culture, because when Estonians sit down and start thinking, mosquitoes will get you. So everything will have to be done on the run. But right now we can sit down in this beautiful forest and we can think of all these beautiful thoughts. And about 10 years ago, Estonians were asked, what kind of forest is your favorite? And turns out that this kind of forest which is surrounding us right now is our favorite. So if we would close our eyes, doesn't matter where we are in the world, then this is probably what we picture, this beautiful, airy pine tree forest.
Aitäh, Valdur, et sa oled meid lasknud siia oma hingemaastikku või hingemetsa sisse, sellepärast et sind lugedes on ju nii selge, kuidas sa tunned seda kokkukuulumist metsaga ja maastikuga.
When it comes to this forest and landscape. And this is probably exactly this. When you're traveling and you close your eyes, then this is the kind of forest you picture. So we have now thousands of Estonians who are listening to you today. But these are the people who live in different countries, and they do not have this luxury of the early spring forest around them and listening to the woodfinch singing. But when it comes to the Estonian forest and Estonian nature, which is so important for us, is it really possible to take it with you, or can you recreate it?
džungliga riigis
if you
või
live
troopikas.
somewhere in a tropical country or you have a jungle. I like this idea. What is characteristic to Estonians? That every Estonian has to have their own favorite forest or favorite bog, marshland. This is a very important thing for us.
Sellise kirgliku
As I'm very keen when it comes to mushrooms, then I would say that we are all hiding the best mushrooming locations. So what I can tell you is that this forest has no mushrooms. This is what you can absolutely believe me. But I would agree that there is an amazing thing which connects us all, regardless where we are in the world. We have this sort of memory landscapes. If you think of Fred Jussi, who's talking about soulscapes, because these are places which are very important for us. And maybe something which is quite particular is that Estonians often like going to the forest when there is no one else there. But maybe when it comes to other nations, then they don't want to go to the forest because there are no other people there. So if we look at all the small differences, something which is different for our soulscape, then the differences are definitely there.
Ja kui me siia metsa tulime,
As we came to this forest,
siis on siin ju teadagi, praegu on see aeg, kus kõik linnud on oma laulukõrid lahti teinud ja kuulasime siin vinti. Metsvint tegi oma rõõmsat laulu siin. Nii et mets on kuidagi niisugune väga luuleline ja musikaalne keskkond. Ja me kõik teame, et mis eestlasi väga tugevat seob on just laul, just muusika, eriti koorilaul. Et kas võiks äkki õhku visata sellise mõtte, et äkki on siin mingi seos, äkki on selle sügava looduse ja metsatunde ja selle muusikaarmastuse vahel.
Yes, indeed. Maybe this is one of the reasons why I want to come and sit down here, because sometimes when I sit around without any purpose and I look around at these beautiful views in this pine tree forest, then there is one thing I want to do, is I want to listen to the wind in the trees. And this is one of the amazing things that I think that most of us can envision, the sound of a wind on top of a birch tree. This is something which comes from a childhood, because often this child's swing is attached to a big branch of a birch tree, or you can hear the sound of a wind in the ash or pine or fir tree. So if you listen to the sound of the trees or the combination of different trees, this is the natural choir. And out of interest, I actually looked at the dictionary, and it was amazing because we can just see that there's wind is blowing, but no, this is the list of synonyms of wind blowing in the trees.
Huugab, ulub, undab, mühiseb, kohiseb, mühab, kohab, vilistab, huilgab, möörgab, luilab, lõhiseb, sahiseb, nahiseb, kahiseb, kohiseb, sihiseb, sohiseb, sähiseb, sosistab, uhkab, õhkab ja nii edasi. Millest minul nagu mõte liigub kohe sinna, et kuna me oleme kõik ju meie esivanemad on ikka saunas sündinud, veel kaugemad esivanemad on metsas sündinud,
but previously they were born in the forest and buried in the forest, then
aga kui sul on terav kõrv,
your eyes were not so important, but ears were very important. And maybe take one step further to the beautiful choir singing, which connects us all. So is it too much of a fantasy?
No, ta tundub väga inspireeriv igatahes.
I think it's really inspiring.
Aga see oli väga tore, et sa nüüd jõudsid sellest metsast kuidagi sellise elegantse pöördega selle sama keele teema juurde, eesti keele teema juurde, mis meil ju tegelikult on ka täna siin 1,5 tundi olnud arutelu all ja mis on üks minu lemmikteemasid, sellepärast, et mul on tunne, et eestlase seos oma keelega ei põhine sugugi mitte ainult sellel, et see on maailma kõige keerulisem keel, mida meile aeg-ajalt meeldib öelda.
Being the most complicated language in the world, which you sometimes like to say. but I think it's quite special how Estonians like discussing the language, we worry about the language, we play with the language. So these are the things which I think are quite special, and this is not something I've noticed when it came to other nations, and you play with the language as well in your books. Yes, indeed, I'm really grateful to all these people who have been maintaining this beautiful language of the fairies outside Estonia, and I know it's very hard, you really have to work at it. But as an Estonian in Estonia, it's amazing to think that it doesn't matter where you go, you will find another Estonian somewhere else who speaks this language of fairies. So maybe this playing with the language and this amazing sound, this particular sound of the language is something we need to stress, and not to say that Estonian is so complicated that we can't handle it ourselves. So playing with the language is something which really describes our passion when it comes to this language. And I chose a play on the words as a poem. And there are not many times when you can actually read the poetry out in the forest, so now I have this possibility. So this is a poem, which is a play on words in Estonian.
Muidu sillavaht ehmub ja lendabki sillalt alla. Silda mööda saab Vääna jõe suust üle õhne Ähijärveni. Silda mööda saab hobusega oivaliselt Oulusse. Silla all Vääna jõe suus hüüab Jaak Jõeröödi suveöö unenägu. Ema, Ellamaal allikad helisevad ja Alajõel õitsevad õunapuud. Õunapuud õitsevad Jüriöö ülestõusust jõululaupäevani. Ähijärve ääres on jäääär väga käänuline, annaks aga ahjualuste ametiühing Ahunapalu abajas amfiibidele armuaega. On öö. Ööbik ja öösorr sööstavad öötlasse öölasi sööma. Maakonna, keskkonna, osakonna, kihelkonna konnatiigis on pomm. Kas sa võid tõid, vana nõid? Kas võiste või vabrikust võib või ei või võtta veel veidike võid? Ärgu äigrumäe õmblejad enam ealeski ämmale ämbriga äiaku. Niigi on ilumäe ilma, ilmast ilma, ilusast ilmast ilma. Sõida tasa üle silla, sõida tasa üle silla.
So these are all the Estonian language tongue twisters and umlauts. As you could hear, even the woodfinch stopped singing. Thank you, Valdur.
Kuidas tahaks ka sinna välgi metsa
like to join them in this magic forest and enter the linguistic forest, learning to listen to the chanterelle with Valdur Mikita. It's an art, but you all probably have your own forest. So you can go there, listen to the silence and think about the beauty of the Estonian language. Multilingualism and maintaining the Estonian language while living abroad is something that is close to our hearts. There's nothing nicer than coming to Estonia for your vacation and listening to your children freely communicating with their grandparents in Estonian. There's no greater joy than hearing your teenage daughter telling you upon graduating from secondary school that they will be enrolling at the University of Tartu. For us, as parents, all it takes is to speak to our children in Estonian every day, to support them, to steer them, to keep all doors open for them. In our communities abroad, we can be supportive with the language schools, societies, etc. in maintaining the Estonian language and identity. What the course of our children will be when they grow up will be up to them to decide. But what's important is that Estonia and the Estonian Republic remain open and free. We have a lot of space here and a lot of opportunities. Thank you to everyone participating today all over the world. Thank you to all panelists and performers. And the winner of the lottery, who will have a free trip to Estonia, we will draw that on the 16th of May at 12 o'clock Estonian time. If we don't meet before, we shall for sure meet at the young people's sing and dance festival, but until now we can read news from the website, the news. On top of that, the 9th of May is the Europe Day, and there will be a concert at the Freedom Square, which will be broadcast on Estonian Broadcasting. We can think about Estonia, about Europe, stick together and enjoy the spring.
kardan, kus jälle mu pihust kõik